Now, a lot of people talk about the social justice leftists within comics, but quite admittedly, a lot of people complain just to complain and don't really speak about these specifics, right? So today I'm going to explain how exactly these writers showcase their bad product and theorize why this may be the case. The rise of social media also goes hand in hand with the rise of social justice. Social justice in itself isn't necessarily new, but to the degree that it is now, with folks being called social justice warriors, this is a relatively new phenomenon. We live in an age of buzz terms galore: toxic masculinity, institutionalized racism, safe spaces, mansplaining, and everybody that seems to be even remotely open to hearing others out or engaging with them are considered Nazis or fascists that must be deplatformed. We live in an age of regression. In the 90s going into the early 2000s, people weren't nearly as obsessed with race and such, but now people are, yet again, in society. And these types of leftists have done a great job in infiltrating art throughout the decades, be it music or Hollywood. But now it has become so painfully obvious in comic book culture, and that is the latest tool of the social justice leftists. Now, they'll lie all day long and say social justice has always been a part of comics. But these types aren't really artistic at all. This is why they can't come up with their own characters. They instead exist to really change the pre-existing ones to fit their ideological nonsense. Now, with the rise of social media, everything seems to be for a show, and virtue signaling is the thing to do. So what writers have done is figured out that they can use these established characters to either signal or promote their nonsense. Or they can use the culture itself to do it, which is why they promote garbage like representation and diversity over actual good storytelling. The truth is, many of these fools are just the result of diversity hires, and they've convinced the higher ups in mainstream comics that their nonsense represents what people actually want to see and hear. Yet it is obviously that this does not work. Most social justice warriors only do things for show. They don't actually buy comics. And then you have the other writers who have even changed their style to fit in their nonsense. Here's the harsh reality. Most comic book guys, be it writers, artists, or consumers, are socially awkward. They're sort of weirdos, man. Just go look at some of them. Look some of them up. This is partially why I stuck out like a sore thumb, because I was the brother that had a background in doing cool stuff like fronting a metal band. I can essentially blend in and out of pop culture. So now that virtue signaling and social justice is so loud in social media, these socially awkward dudes have not only defended social justice nonsense, they've adopted it because they see it as a way for them to finally be acknowledged by pop culture. They never admit that, but that's one of my theories. As far as the actual material though, this is what separates a good writer from a terribly bad, like SJW writer, I guess. A good writer takes the legacy of established heroes that they of course did not create, and they can write these interesting stories that fit the actual character. What the SJWs do instead, though, is just use the character or the story surrounding the character as a platform to promote their nonsense. It's their canvas. Making the theme feel like that of the character is something that is placed on the back burner. It's secondary. And this is so obvious when you consider like the dialogue. What separates previous like X-Men writers is that they could handle like current issues or social conflicts without having to be so on the nose. They didn't need to use dialogue or anything and really get you thinking about what this may represent. Plus, there were always multiple interpretations of it. But with some of the current writers, they actually need to tell you, right? They have to fit in their social ideals in the dialogue, no matter if it's out of place, random, or it makes any sort of sense. It's as on the nose as it possibly can be. For example, if you read the current run of Captain Marvel, issue number 1, not the 17 other reboots, the current one, Nuclear Man, who is literal toxic masculinity, pops up inexplicably and kidnaps a reporter after saying the most misogynistic things that he possibly can. To be fair, this has always really been that character, but the way he pops up in the first issue without any sort of explanation makes it painfully obvious, as that's the only reason why he's there. And after he kidnaps the reporter, Danvers literally says, "I am not losing her to a 7-foot misogynist." Apparently, if it was a 5-foot non-misogynist, kidnapping is permissible. But again, instead of just showing you this, Kelly Thompson, the writer, literally put it in a damn speech bubble. The same writer Kelly Thompson wrote the now canceled West Coast Avengers. In issue number 9, there's this scene where Gwenpool, tokenized Deadpool, is talking to this black chick who looks like the stereotypical blue-haired SJW with fishnets and these boots on. But in the dialogue, she literally states that because she is a black female, a surfing champion with a successful small business, that makes her a superhero. Really? Again, this isn't just like me saying this, they're literally saying this. This is actually in a speech bubble. It's painfully forced and on the nose, it's way too on the nose. Same thing happened with Al Ewing, who slipped up in the current run of Immortal Hulk. He brags about blocking gators on a personal tip, on his Twitter and whatnot, aka Comic Gators, and has me blocked on Twitter, ironically, for whatever reason. But in the Immortal Hulk, he has this black chick talking about how destructive white men are with their college education. Like, the chick is talking to the Hulk and telling him that. It's completely randomized. It doesn't move the story along or capture the essence of this particular arc. It's just a chick telling him this random crap. It's just bad writing, but this is about them simply using the comic to promote their agendas. And though comics like Immortal Hulk aren't like the worst things out there, they're not the worst things in the world, they are sort of mediocre at best, and the rest are just flat out terrible. So we have many mainstream comics and comic culture into film and TV that have been infested with this nonsense, and people are acting all confused as to why there's such a backlash. It's not that difficult to really understand. You fools can't write, or you're too focused on trying to appeal to the social justice leftists, the normies that aren't even going to consistently buy your comic, while insulting the guys that have been around for decades buying these comics. You're trying to appeal to people that are only loud on Twitter and Instagram and would love to see classic characters ruined, but as far as print comics, they aren't really going to buy them. I've said multiple times, though Captain Marvel, for whatever reason, is the most protected superhero of all time since she has this recent movie, I know more about this lousy character than the SJWs that call everybody trolls because I actually own these damn comics. I'm probably the only one that owns these comics because nobody is buying this crap, as they are always hanging off the shelf in abundance because they were overshipped. I don't need to Google on some fandom site to pretend I know what I'm talking about or have like some connection to comics just to be a part of some internet conversation. I actually read this. Comics has a huge content problem right now, man, and it's not just attributed to the social justice left, to be fair, but they are absolutely part of it and deserve a portion of the blame. But likewise, wishy-washy content creators, be it commentators, writers, or artists that hold their tongue, certainly aren't helping the problem either. We need more people that are knowledgeable on the source material and want change, not people that are just complaining just to be complaining for the sake of views on YouTube like many YouTubers do. But they also have to have the appeal with the balls to speak up.